Sometimes life gets overwhelming. It doesn't matter how hard you work, how positive your outlook, even how good your life is. Sometimes you take too many hits and all you can do is lay stunned on the mat. Since my last video, I lost 2 more chickens, my car, and most painfully, our sweet rescue cat Marcy. My last video has the last images we have of her. I think editing that video and seeing her is what finally broke me. All the feelings of guilt and shame and failure flooded in, and I just stopped. For a few weeks, I didn't do anything but the bare minimum. Didn't go to church, didn't go to pottery, didn't set foot in the garden. I just retreated into myself to lick my wounds and tie up what broken threads I could. But these things pass. Things that felt gray and uninspiring begin to have color again. You find your muscles want to be used. You have an idea that you're curious if it will work. And day by day, you come back to life. Maybe not quite the same, but hopefully a little stronger. Just like the seasons, you've changed, and that's not a bad thing. Morning, and welcome back at long last to the farm. We are well into autumn now. It is the week after the equinox, so it's getting dark a lot earlier here. We've had a couple of frost advisories, but haven't actually had frost yet. So our first frost date is October 8th, I think. So it's a little early for it yet, and I'm just as glad for it to hold off. Although I'm kind of done with gardening for the season. This season did not go the way I had hoped, but as you can see, my first year with the new garden has been kind of hit and miss. I didn't plant enough. These monstrosities, they're taller than I am. And they're interesting flowers. Let me show you. I had expected like a black-eyed Susan, but these are much more tubular, so they look more like fireworks than black-eyed Susans. And like I said, when they stand up straight, they're taller than I am. But I've got way too many of them, and they're in the wrong place in the garden. So next year I'll definitely move those out to the edges so that they're not taking up all my central space. I think next year I'm going to turn at least these first 3 beds into an herb garden for my kitchen herbs, because I don't really have a good... Do you mind not destroying my flowers? Shameless. Absolutely shameless. I wish you could smell this. This is my pineapple sage. And I just love the smell of it because it really does smell just like fresh pineapple. We've got firewood in for the winter. That's 2 cords. I don't know if you can see how far back it goes. So hopefully, they are calling for a cold winter this year, but hopefully that's going to be enough to get me through. I know I went through about 2 cords last year. This is the new car. This is Sage. It's a Subaru Forester. I've decided from now on I'm only driving Subarus and Toyotas because my last car gave me so much grief, and I'm not going to risk that again. I started the grapes. Remember how I thought the grapes were all dead? The grapes are not dead. And some of them are doing better than others, but like this is one that I got last year from the Soil and Water Conservation. And that's getting about to the point where it's ready to get wired. I did run a wire, let me turn it this way, for these grapes. Some of them are bigger than others, and I need to come through and clip them on. But you can see I've got the wire running all the way down here. It's about 2.5, 3 feet off the ground. So just, let's see if I can show you, just below my hip. And I need to put a couple of supports in to keep it from sagging. So I'm just going to move some of these T-posts in between to hold them up. But like this one, look at how beautiful this one's gotten. It's just going great guns all the way along the wire. And I want to, hopefully this branch will get big enough that I'll be able to wrap it and have it come along the wire this way. And then this one is still a little short to attach, but I want to have that go along the wire that way. And then as they get bigger, I'll put another wire in about this high. I'll see if that shows it all. So about 5 feet, and run that along. And then that should give me plenty of support for those. The new fruit trees that I put in seem to be doing okay. Again, we didn't have any water, any rain in August and September until this week. And we got almost 6 inches this week. So it's been a wet week, but a very dry summer. So we're waiting to see how these are going to go. And I mean, this is ridiculous because it's way too short to protect it from the deer. But I'm hoping the smell of the horseradish is going to be enough to deter the deer. I've got this horseradish here and that one over there. So I'm definitely going to be able to harvest and split it next year. Thanks to the guys, I finally, at long last, have the permanent garden fence done all the way around the whole garden, including the expanded garden. This is a relief to have done. It takes a lot of pressure off me, feeling like I was too far behind and I was never going to make this happen. Again, this year was not a great year for the garden with it. I don't know if you remember how it rained the entire month of May. And it didn't stop until I was getting ready to leave to go to Baltimore when everything started heading south. So the only things I've really got going, the potatoes are ready for harvest. Oop, it's noon. Good afternoon. I've got to go check on the okra. That Josh and Avery have been mostly watching that. I wouldn't know okra from anything, but Avery's from the South and knows a little bit more about Southern cooking than I do, so I built this gate. Can you tell? It works, maybe not as efficiently as I would like. And I may have to come out and move it up because this pole is leaning a bit this way. So I need to brace it back up and support it and then reattach that so it's a little bit higher off the ground. I just kind of tossed all of the gates or the fences from the dead trees over the fence to eventually get put away, but for right now they're just in my way in the path. I did manage to get cover crop down on these beds that I'm not using because they were just getting taken over with weeds. So I believe this is ryegrass and legumes. So this should all die back when we get our first frost, and that'll add organic matter into these beds and get us set for adding manure and whatever to them in the spring. And you can see they're all looking like very beautiful grave sites. The rest of the garden was kind of hit and miss. I didn't have a lot of success with my zucchini as per usual. Oh, neighbors are working on the roof. I got 4 or 5 summer squash off of the 5 plants that I put in, and then the plants all died. So what I have had an amazing crop of is nasturtiums. So I really have to be much more careful about how many nasturtiums I'm putting in and where. It's hard to tell. I have celery in the end of that, and it's just been devoured. My cabbages are amazing. I have so many cabbages. I'm going to have to make sauerkraut. I've got a recipe for canned coleslaw that I want to put up. And I'm going to experiment with just storing the cabbages. Look at those. Look at the size of this head. It's bigger than my hand. Because if I can just store them in the basement, because my basement is kind of damp and cool, that would be great. And then I can have things like colcannon through the winter. The cauliflower that I gave up on is finally making some heads. So I got to keep an eye on those and harvest those before they start flowering. But I never could catch the broccoli. It just got away from me every single time. Now I do have some florets down here, so I should harvest those and a little bit more there. So end of the season, I'm doing much better than I was the beginning of the season. The peppers are still touch and go. The lunchbox peppers, both Avery and I grew these, and neither one of us had any luck with getting any fruit off of them. So that was disappointing. These are my natapinos, and so I do have some that makes these kind of cracked fruits. So I do have some of those to go with my jalapenos. So I've got lots of jalapenos. I've got this one very large dill volunteer. I did not plant this, at least not this year. I planted them last year, and I think it just self-seeded and has grown very large. So I've got to decide what I'm going to do about that. These are my green peppers, my bell peppers, and those I've mostly harvested. I say that. Here's another one. Oh, and there's another one. So they're still producing. This is the most successful year I've had for peppers. I've already picked about 2 dozen, and I can see several more. My borage here has gone bananas along with the nasturtiums. In fact, they've kind of taken over the path so I can't get through here. And I'm not complaining about that too much because the bees love both these plants. I don't know how well you can see, if you can see the bumblebees all over the borage plants here. So I'm very happy with that. Let me see how I can get through here. I'm waiting for fall to cut back the asparagus, but I'm definitely going to cut this back this year and try and clean these beds up. I'm not sure where the runners of my strawberries are going, so I want to make sure to try and keep those in the bed. You can see I've got some over here making their way out into the paths, which there you go, which I will either just cut back, or I may try and transplant them and sell them off or something. The peas that I gave up on have decided to make their presence known now instead of in the spring. So I'm keeping an eye out. I've got a couple of peas. These are supposed to be pod peas. So they're a little past. These ones are past. So I need to come through with a pair of scissors. But you can also see a lot of it has died way back. And these ones, out of the 20-some plants I planted, I got one pod pea. So we'll try that in a different bed again next year. I pulled out all the green beans. The green beans went mad, which is too bad because I don't like green beans. But I wanted to put up some cans, but I just never got around to canning them. So the chickens had fun with those. But these are my beets, so I need to get those harvested. And I think I'm just going to can them straight this year. I'm not going to pickle them because I still have a lot of pickled beets from last year. But I do like to make a beet and pea salad, which is just canned beets, canned peas, and mayonnaise. I know, I grew up in the Midwest to New England parents, so it's not adventurous eating. But it's a nice salad. The tomatoes, Lordy. So you'll remember I was so confident about the string that I used was going to be so much stronger this year than last year. It was not. So I had some of this 3-foot-high fence left from doing the garden fence. So I've just attached that to the T-posts, and that is working really well. So next year, obviously I can't grow the tomatoes here next year. I think they're going to be the row after where the peas are and the row where the peppers are. I think those are going to be the tomatoes next year. So I'm just going to set up some more of these 8-foot stakes and put some of this fencing on it. Everybody talks about using cattle panels, but cattle panels are so expensive now. They're like $35, $40 for a 16-foot fence, and I only need 10 feet. So it's just too much money and too much length to then have to deal with the leftovers. So I'm gonna just keep going with this welded wire. I did get, since they got up off the ground, I did start getting some of my Costoluto tomatoes. You can see, ooh, I'm going to leave that one alone because it's got a wasp on it. But you can see that one getting color. They taste so good. Oh my gosh. I am so happy with that experiment. So next year, I actually have already collected seeds from these. They may not breed true because they were close to all these other varieties. But if they do, oh man, they are so good. And I'm definitely going to keep growing those. This side you can see I experimented when the string started breaking. This was the first side that collapsed. So I experimented with just putting stakes in and tying them up to the stakes. And that sort of worked, but I couldn't really get the stakes in deep enough. So as the weight built up, they just tipped over. So I won't do that again either. Let's see. And that's about that for the garden. My Chinese greens that I put in at the beginning of the year just bolted right away and never ended up doing much. So I'm not sure what, I'm just gonna, I don't know if you can see the bees. Everything that's flowering right now, I'm just leaving for the bees because they're down to the wire for the year, both the bumblebees and the honeybees. So I'm just gonna let them do their thing, and I won't cut stuff back until after first frost, when everybody starts settling in. So it wasn't a bad year in the garden. It wasn't the over exuberant year I was hoping for, but next year will be another chance to do different things wrong. So we finally got all the chickens integrated, happily, and they're all doing well. We still need to trim the new chickens' wing feathers because, man, let me tell you, if they can fly, it's hysterical. Here they come. They see me out here and they're waiting for treats. But if they're in a hurry to get somewhere, you'll see those Americanas just wing it across the yard, and it's very funny to watch. But it has been a problem because we've had a couple of mornings where we found like one Americana out in the yard, looking very confused, like, how did I get out here? How do I get back inside? Can I help you, Dottie? Oh, you're not a Dottie, you're a June. There's one of the Dotties, and then that back there next to Henry, to James, is Xena. I'm getting closer and closer to the chicken yard and where the snacks are. So we also made, well, you saw me change the roosting bars, which has finally they've adapted to that, but we've also added in a new nesting box, which they seem to like this better than the boxes that are built into the side. The problem with it is, of course, the top catches all the droppings off the bars, but for laying, it keeps the boxes clean, so they prefer laying in these boxes. So we want to get some linoleum to put on the top to make that easier to clean off, especially as we're heading into winter where they're going to be spending more and more time in here. As I said, we took that nesting box out of the old coop because we wanted to make a change to the setup in there for the rabbits. I prefer doing what's called a colony setup, where the rabbits all kind of live together on the ground, and that can be an outdoor setup or an indoor setup. Ours is going to be kind of half and half, so we've turned, I don't know how well you can see it, we've turned the chicken coop part of the shed here into the colony run. So we've got the girls in there. So, I don't know, let me see if I can come out of the sun if you can see. We've got Julia here and Lydia there. And Gordo is still in his cage, but at least he can talk to the girls. And we got this all set up just in time for what we expected to be Julia giving birth to our first litter of meat rabbits. I bred her with Gordo in early August. Rabbits take 28 days to gestate. So around September 4th, 5th, we were expecting babies, and we never saw babies. Julia was making some funny noises for a day or so, and then that was kind of it. So we wrote it off that Gordo was still too young to do his job, and we would just write it off, and we'll try again in the spring because I don't really want to be dealing with butchering in February. I came out last night to feed the rabbits and put them away for the night. And let me show you what I found. You guys are making it very hard for me to make good video content here. Where are all the puffles hiding? Are you hiding all the puffles? That's right. I found 3-week-old babies. She had them behind this hay bale that it's not on the ground, and you can kind of see the little well that they were hanging out in. And then went back to acting like things were completely normal, which is what rabbits do. She did exactly what she was supposed to do, which was have the babies and keep the predators away by not letting them know where the babies were. She did a great job because we had no friggin' clue. She didn't use the nesting box that we put here for her. She didn't use the hidey hole box that we put here for her. She made her own space, which is the absolute opposite of where she's been hanging out, because she likes to hang out in the holes of the cinder block that we've got the water up on. So I don't even know. She's a good mama. She did what she was supposed to do. So we have 8 babies now. There are 3 browns, 2 white with broken patches, which is like spots. We have 2 dark gray, and we have 1 very cute, I call it a tortoise shell kind of color. They're very cute, and they are very bouncy and eager, and I'm not sure why they're hiding out behind the cinder block unless it's just nap time. Well, let me see if I can get a little more footage of them for you. Really wants to move. Lydia seems to be being a good aunt, that she's kind of keeping an eye on them when they get split up from each other and making sure that I'm not causing any problems. So Morgan was the first one to have any kind of clue this was going on, because he had noticed that the girls were eating a lot more than they had been. Which is not to be unexpected. The weather's getting colder. They need a little more food to keep them going and keep them warm. So we just didn't think anything of it. But like I said, when I came in to feed them last night, I saw something zip across the back of the run. And my first thought was, has something gotten into the rabbitry? Because there have been issues with critters getting into chicken coops in the neighborhood. So I was worried that something was going after the girls. But then I realized, wait a minute, that was white and small. I think that's a rabbit. So I came in and saw the thing run back the way it came, and that's when I lifted up the netting for the hay and realized that sneaky little so-and-so had her babies and never let us know. Oh, yes, I'm talking about you, Miss Julia. Sneaky Miss Julia. We're trying to be practical about what these rabbits are for. They are not pets. They are working animals. And they are intended for meat. We'll see if we can actually follow through with it when it's time. That won't be until at least December. They need 8 to 12 weeks to get to full size, or to butchering size. But I'm not going to think about that right now. I'm just going to enjoy the moment that we are in and worry about what will come when it comes. There's enough space in here for all of them. We will have to separate out any males, and in which case they'll go into the cages outside, and we'll keep an eye on them there. We can't keep the boys as breeders because while they could breed their mothers, it's not good to have them breed their sisters. And likewise, in reverse, we can use Gordo to breed any of the girls that we decide we want to keep, but we shouldn't have them breed with their brothers. So anything that doesn't go in the freezer, I may see about selling off or something like that if I can't bring myself to do the deed. But rabbits are a really efficient meat source. They have a high what's called feed to meat ratio. So they convert their feed into muscle very effectively, especially compared to some other meat source animals like chickens or cows. It's the cute factor. The cute factor is what makes it really hard, especially in this country, which has a taboo against eating pets, which, I mean, even I wouldn't think about eating a cat or a dog, which is perfectly normal in other parts of the world and should be. Lots of other places in the world eat rabbit. It's a very common, even here in the United States, there are people who hunt hares and wild rabbit, and it's not any different than raising your own, just like it's not any different hunting wild boar to raising your own pigs. But it's a mental thing. So, and I probably won't show much of that when we get to that point. There are plenty of videos you can go out and see about butchering rabbits. My ideal would probably be to find somebody in the area who does butcher rabbits that I could barter with or pay somebody to do it. But yes, you. But these will be the only babies that we have now. I will probably breed Lydia in March so that we have our next round of babies in April. And by then I'll have a better sense of just what I am capable of doing. And if I can't do it, I'll probably end up selling these 3 as a breeding pair. And any babies, I'll sell those off separately as pets, but we'll worry about that when we get to that. In the meantime, we just get to enjoy having cute little fluffles, because a group of baby rabbits is called a fluffle, and they look like a fluffle. So we'll have the fluffle around for a little while. And when they're born, they're about this big. They're about the size of a lima bean, and no fur, absolutely naked, and their eyes are just blue lumps on their faces because they haven't grown their fur in and they're just so small. So we missed the whole ugly stage. stage of them finding their way around and exploring their world, and they are already masters of their universe. So, like I said, she did a marvelous job as a mother. I don't see remains of any of these babies that didn't make it through delivery. She obviously didn't have any problem delivering them because we never noticed a darn thing. And the next day she was right up at the door, same as she always was, begging for food or trying to find an escape. So I'm blathering on because they're not doing anything, and I was hoping they would come out more. But I'm sure in the weeks to come you'll get to see lots more of these babies. I've kind of got my eye on at least one of them that if it's female, I do want to keep as breeding stock just because it's a really pretty color. But these rabbits are all California Rex crosses. Both those varieties are, ooh, there goes somebody. There goes somebody. Both of those varieties are good meat rabbits. A lot of people like to cross, especially in this area apparently, like to cross their rabbits with a breed called the Flemish Giant. And these are enormous rabbits. So I can see what the benefit would be, or mentally what you would think the benefit would be. But fortunately, through Crow's time in 4-H, we learned that actually Flemish Giants are not good meat rabbits because they are more bone than meat. So if you are using them for meat, like I was talking earlier about the feed to meat ratio, is not as good with the Flemish Giants. But around here, those are the crosses that you can get. So I was really lucky to be able to find these that do not have Flemish Giants in their line at all. They're just Rexes and Californians, which are the most common breeds raised for meat, especially the Californians. Usually it's Californians and New Zealand's are the common ones. But I like the temperament of the Rexes. We had Rexes before, and I just like them. So I'm really happy to have these, the girls and Gordo, who, good job, Gordo. You did your job even when I said you didn't. So I got to start watching my mouth. That's twice this year I called things wrong. And so we're just going to enjoy having these and see what other surprises we have in store for us. Think what else I've been up to since I talked to you last. We did attempt to harvest apples and ran into a small problem. We waited a little too long. Again, I was waiting to hear from the cidery again this year, and they sort of got back to me and then never followed up. So we decided I was just going to pick 5 gallons of our own apples and we would press those for ourselves. Now let me show you something. I don't know how well you can see it on this tree here and this tree here. No, don't focus on my finger. And this tree right there. Can you see all the apples on those trees? We cannot reach any of those apples. So even though we have tons of apples on the property, we can't get to them to make use of them. So we got about a gallon of apples and did grind and press those and got 2 liters of cider. It's a really interesting cider. It is very sweet up front, but has a very dry finish. It's not so great for sweet drinking, but I think it probably would be really good if we were to ferment it. I don't have the setup for fermenting, but I may just try it anyway. Just burping the bottle and see what happens. Because they never used to pitch yeast into it. They just used the yeast that was on the apples. So, oh, hello. So, I still have all kinds of apples on the property. I haven't been back up to the orchard yet. Again, because we didn't get any rain, I haven't needed to mow, so I haven't gone up there yet. Oh, the bees. I finally extracted all of the honey that I pulled out of the dead outs this past spring and got about 4 gallons of honey and I figure a pound of beeswax. Oof, the chickens have been up on the lawn chairs. Jerks. So that was really, it's still sitting in a 5-gallon bucket on my kitchen counter. I have to get it tapped out. Somebody else has missed you guys too. Can you tell? This young man ended up having to go to the vet as well. Do not bite me. Do not bite me. I know you want to play. He decided to play these kind of games with the big neighborhood cat, who is about twice his size. And he ended up getting 3 abscesses in his butt. So I don't know if he'll let me show you the naked spot on his backside, which is starting to grow in, but is still very short. So we had to take him in and get him shaved and get those lanced and put him on antibiotics. So I don't know that that's going to keep him from taking Jax on, but there you go. And what, I got a chance to go dye yarn a couple of weeks ago, so that was good. I've been reorganizing the studio to finally try and get that cleaned up and not such a catch-all as it has been. I'm sure it's going to get cluttered again because I don't have space to just stick stuff. We had a house a couple of houses ago that we called the stick room because it's just where you put everything you didn't know where to put anywhere else. Mine is now the big shed or the basement for the most part, but there's some stuff I just want to have accessible. But I've made it easier to get at my yarn, and I've got the tools up off the floor so they stop just getting kicked around the floor. So that'll all help. We set up, I bought that fire pit for $20 back in August, I think. Early August, maybe late July. So we've got that cleaned up, and I repainted it, and it's all loaded up with firewood we were going to have a fire for the equinox, but by the time we were done doing the apple pressing, which we did that day, I was just too tired to do anything, so we'll save that for another day. Plus now it's been rained on all week, so it's got to dry off. My butt's getting wet because the seat cushion has got 6 inches of rain soaked in it too. I am not complaining about the rain. It would have been nice to have had it spread out over the summer when we didn't have any rain for 2 months, but I'll take what we can get. I actually was watching the creek because like I said, we got 6 inches in the space of like 3 or 4 days, so I was really worried that the creek was going to come over its banks, but it didn't. So I think that catches you up. I can't think of anything else going on. But I'm sorry to have been gone so long. I'll try not to do that again, but I can't make any promises. Sometimes you have to step back for a little bit so you can come back with more energy and keep going. And that's fine. That's how we get through all the tough things in our life and in the world. If you fight as long as you can, and then when you can't, you step back and you recover, and then you step up to fight again. So I hope you keep fighting. I hope you come back next time. It'll be at least once a week. I promise, cross my heart. I will make sure it's at least once a week, even if it's just baby rabbit videos. We are winding down for the season, but we do have to harvest the potatoes, and we're going to have to start cleaning out the garden beds soon. So I hope you'll come back and see what we get up to next time. Take care, everybody.